This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.
My name is Kiani Mills, and this podcast is created to help you see, feel, and experience the human side of business. I'm a business owner, an entrepreneur, and a parent. And like many who have traveled this path before me, I've been through the lows of the lows and the gut-wrenching pain. But I've been through the triumphs and the wins and the indescribable highs, all of which I consider to be my lessons in the school of life. On this show, we are going to start some conversations to ignite new world ideas into some very old age businesses. So if you're a leader, a business mind, or an entrepreneur, get ready to think, act, and feel differently so that we can all reach a new level of business success together. So, what are you waiting for?
Welcome back to this week's episode of She Can Humanize Business. This is a podcast made for business owners who wish to do things a little bit differently, see things a little bit differently, and behave a little bit differently. And I am super excited to be joined today all the way from the other side of the world, from the snowy side of the world. Mr. Drew McManus, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Now, for a lot of Australians, you are a pretty big deal, especially where I live up in the sunny coast. We are very blessed. We're in Queensland, the top side of Australia, and I would say we're in more of a spiritual community. And your songs are pretty much theme songs up here. And it's an incredible thing to hear someone's soul through the words of a song. How does those kinds of statements make you feel when you hear that from the other side of the world?
Oh, it makes me really happy. I can look at, me and my team will look at like Spotify data every year to kind of make a plan of what we want to do. And we had seen that, right? We had seen that like Queensland, as far as streaming goes, that there was like 2 Australian cities that were always in the top 10. It was just a matter of like having a contact to get down there. And then this guy, Dan, reached out and like made it happen. And I assumed, I don't know, the shows were way more than what I thought they would be, for sure.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
like I thought they'd be okay. And every single night he's like, yeah, we have 450 people coming. I was like, what?
Yeah.
You know, literally the exact other side of the planet. So yeah, it blows me away. It's crazy what can happen when we put our thing into the world. You know, we have really no idea where it's going to go or who it's going to touch. And yeah, it's really humbling to me.
Yeah, that's epic. And yeah, Dan is actually a good friend of mine, and that's how I was introduced to your music, and was very blessed to be able to be at the Sunshine Coast event and watched you in person. And I'll tell you right now, I mean, look, live music is always, it's a part of my soul anyway. Music for me is that, every moment in time has this little time capsule attached to it, that every time I listen to a certain song, it's like, poof, straight
Same.
back there. It's that magical piece of, it feels like magic. It's something that's outside of me, but I can't really explain it. But when it's in, it's just turns a light on that wasn't there before. And I'm very blessed to be surrounded by some incredible musicians and artists. And to me, I'm always fascinated around the words in songs, because like I say to my kids all the time, they'll be like singing out to a song in the car, and I'll be like, what is it about this song that you love? They're like, oh, I don't know. It's just, it's on the radio, or, it's on TikTok, or we're not listening to the radio anymore. It's TikTok now, Mum. And I go, what about the words? Like, have you actually listened to the words? And they're like, oh, no, I don't even know what the words mean, but they know them all. And that boggles my mind, because I've always got so caught in the words.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And the beautiful part of that concert, I feel, for me anyway, it was you being able to express and speak into each one of those songs as they came up, and sharing the story behind, the process that went behind writing those songs. And yeah, I guess the question that I've got, was the music always in you Was it from like, you know, the little kids that hear it and they're like, yeah, that's what I want to do? Was it always inside of you, or was it something that kind of came along the way?
It was the first thing I remember. Yeah, I just loved it. And I figured out pretty quick that I was listening to music differently than everyone around me was listening to music. Yeah, you know, a lot of people growing up where I grew up listened to hip hop music, you know, and there was stuff that everybody liked that I didn't like because I was like, this is trash. Like, do you hear what he's saying? And people were like, no, I don't really, it's just fun to say.
To the beat, yeah.
And then there was, you know, there was a couple artists for me early on that really like blew me away. You know, like I remember being 9 years old. I was 9 years old the first time I heard Nas. And the way he put words together and the depth and the articulation of the way he told his story, it blew me away. You know, at 9 years old, I was like hooked on words. It just became like such a cool thing to me. And I would hear like a couplet in a song. Like I would hear a couple sentences in a song and I would write them down. I'd be like, I don't know why I'm writing this down, but something about that was so cool, you know, like, and it didn't matter what it was, you know, like I hear a Beach Boys song and just be like, there was something about the way he said that that I liked. And I would write it down. And yeah, I think where I had the like light bulb of like, oh, this is different for me. Like I remember hanging with some homies and we were listening to Tupac. I started crying, you know, like I just started tearing up at what he was saying. And I was like, you know, we were smoking weed and, you know, I was like deep in my feels. And yeah, we were listening until the end of time.
Yeah,
And the
wow.
way that, you know, I had a really hard life, especially when I was young. So like, I felt like he was putting into words all of these things I felt, but I didn't know how to say. And it just like cracked me, you know, and I started
Yeah,
tearing up. And my friends are like, dude, we're listening to gangster rap. Like, what is this making you tear up? I'm like, you hear this dude right now? You know, like, yeah.
yeah.
So it's just always been super deep for me. And then I started writing my own stuff when I was probably like 12, 13.
Oh, it's amazing. And so
Yeah.
from that, were you, so as you said, like over time, writing down bits and pieces from other songs that resonated and meant something. When you started writing your songs, were they songs for you that meant something, or were they outside of you for others? Where did it start?
Yeah, I definitely had no inclination to share anything that I was writing. And then I would say about halfway through high school, I started playing these open mics. I hated school.
Yeah.
I hated it. And
The
I
system
just
that you?
no, you know, and I just knew I wanted to do music. And I always feel conceited when I say this, but I knew I was smarter than most of my teachers. Like the books I was reading were so past the thoughts that they seemingly held. You know, I was like on just a whole different trip. And
Well, I guess for them, they're reading the same book every single year. You're reading
totally,
those.
yeah, you know, I was just like super into the Black Panthers and like counterculture. And so I was just reading weird stuff, you know, like reading Allen Ginsberg and Hunter Thompson and anything written by the Black Panthers. And but a lot of a lot of the songs I wrote in high school, that like some of the first songs I shared were about that, about like, I don't like this system. I don't need this system. And I am going to do my own thing. Like that, almost every song was like, this is bullshit. I'm going to do my own thing. And I can't wait for you to see me do my own thing. Like that was pretty much every song I wrote in high school.
Yeah, it's like a little kid's way to vent.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Watch me tell you how much I hate you and how better I can do it myself.
Yes, 100%. It was very much that.
I'm pretty sure my kids are doing the exact same thing right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of it's where your brain's at, you know, you're just assessing everything and your prefrontal cortex is so underdeveloped, you know, that you're just like your worldview is, you know, it's so narrow. It's you're the center of the universe, you're the center of the story. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, and then I just kept writing songs, you know. It took a long time for me to think about pursuing music seriously because I was just a mess, but I just didn't really know what that looked like. I didn't know how, you know.
And as a kid at school, when we're being taught to be a certain way, those kinds of concepts aren't really shared with us. And even, I mean, I'm quite blessed where my kids go to school up here. They're at a Montessori, so they're a play-based learning center, and they're running businesses within their school in year 7, 8, and 9. And to me, that's remarkable because I'm a business owner. Whereas I know for me growing up, and similarly, I kind of grew up in the like the Bronx of Melbourne down in Frankston. And the only things we were really taught about was university and what jobs you could get through staying in school, and stay in school
Yep.
kind of message that was sent out through the 80s and the 90s. And there was no concept that anything outside of getting a real job was an option. So it's not surprising that as a 12-year-old kid navigating this world, let alone trying to navigate that world, trying to live by one set of rules that is being kind of like shoved down your throat, that you didn't know any different.
Yeah, and I had evidence, you know what I mean? Like I grew up around people that sold drugs. And I
Yeah.
was like, these dudes make way more money than you, and they're chilling most of the time. You know, like they're never, like they don't got to wake up early. They don't got to do any of the shit y'all have to do. And yeah, so I had all these, I just always knew that there was another way. And I remember like 8 or 9, I don't know if you guys do this in Australia, but there's this like take your kid to work day thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I remember, my stepdad, he sold advertising at a radio station. And again, I loved music. So in my head, I was like, Pops works at a radio station.
Yeah.
So I was like so excited to go see it. And we walk into this room and it's a bunch of cubicles. And then we like sit down at his cubicle and he starts calling auto parts stores and all this, trying to sell him commercial space on the radio. And I was like, oh, you know, and I was like
It's the
looking
fun stuff,
around.
right?
Yeah. And I'm like looking around and everyone's got a tie and everyone looks miserable. And I remember being,
Yeah.
8 years old. I was in like second or third grade and looking around and being like, I'm not doing any of this shit. Like, I'm not wearing
Well,
a tie. I'm not sitting in a cubicle. Like, I'm not doing any of this. Like, this is what you're promising me if I sit in a desk for 6 hours a day that I'll get to sit at a cubicle for 8.
yeah.
Nah.
If this is what you're selling, I'm not interested. That
Yeah.
one is looking mighty fine right now.
Mhm. Yeah. So that's what I started doing. I started hustling. I was like, this is goofy, but
No, that's incredible. And I love the fact too, that, and the reason why I asked, and it came to me last night, just that sentence of, was the music always within you? I feel like music is something that it takes us on its own journey. And we don't really get to choose the things that resonate and don't resonate, the things that land and don't land. And being able to write your own music, I mean, I would love to be able to make my words so eloquent that they could be turned into a song. And I'm very grateful on this side of the fence that I have people like you that write those songs that when I hear them, I go, oh my God, they wrote that straight for me. Like, they're the
yeah,
most,
it's the best feeling in the world.
isn't it? It's like euphoria. It's like having a light bulb moment of, darkness or going through a shit time, and then that little bing of like, oh my God, I see the light. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and even just feeling like somebody else understands you. I think that was it for me growing up, was I never felt like anybody understood what I was going through, because you don't talk, growing up, you don't talk about your feelings. You don't talk about any of that. So music was always that for me. Yeah. And that feeling when I would hear someone describe so perfectly what I felt,
Mm.
I just got so addicted to that.
Absolutely. It takes away, especially, growing up in challenging environments. Look, even for those who are growing up in non-challenging environments, life can be so lonely, and
Hmm.
you really can feel like you're at it alone. And yeah, that little moment of time of like, someone else that just gets it.
Yeah. Yeah. That was always my lifeline. Music has always been there for me. That's why I'm so loyal to it.
Yeah.
It's never let me down.
Yeah. And I'm super excited to get into that story in a minute. But there was a song that you sang in a Sunny Host, and I've tried to find it online. I'm pretty sure you said that it hadn't been released yet. And I still can't find it, so I'm hoping that you'll send it to me after. But the words of that song was around, I'm probably going to butcher it really, really badly. I know that it had the context of like chasing the storm or the chaos in the storm.
Oh, Storm Chaser. Yeah, I haven't released that one yet. I might just release an acoustic version of it because I love that song. It's one of my
Oh
favorite
my.
ones.
Now that song, I was literally standing in the middle of the crowd at um, at the concert, and as you pre-framed the song, I was like, oh yeah, yeah, I get this. I feel like I need to listen right now. And in a sea of hundreds of dancing people, I literally stood still, and I've got goosebumps while I'm telling you this. I stood still, like feet planted. And for a moment in time, my eyes were closed and I was just listening to the words that you said in that song. And I'm getting emotional while I'm saying it. And I was like, fuck, he's literally, those words are my soul. Absolutely my soul. So would you mind sharing that song and what it meant for you and how it came through and just a little bit about the background of that song, please?
Yeah, so that was a song I wrote called Storm Chaser. I grew up in a super, super abusive, from my earliest memory until I left when I was almost 17. It was pretty much just like my daily world, inside the house, and then outside the house was real violent. My everyone around me was always in trouble. It was just chaos, just absolute chaos all the time. And I think what happens when your brain is forming, if chaos is the norm, that like as you get older, you start to like you seek it out for comfort almost. Like, I've found myself in so many phases of life that should be chill. This should be really chill. Like everything is in order, everything's going smoothly. And I'll force some huge change so I have something to go through. Because that feels normal to me. And I used to do this very unconsciously. Um, it was through like reflection said to me by people really close to me, that I started examining it, in therapy, and just started realizing like, oh, this is a pattern. Like the only reason my life is chaotic as an adult is because I'm going out of my way to make it that way. And yeah, so that song for me was really just about kind of examining that, and then kind of examining like, is it something I can change? Or is this just the way that I was meant to be? And this is why I write so effortlessly. That's why it's easy for me to write songs. It's why it's easy for me to make art, because I always have some mountain that I'm climbing. Or maybe even just saying that, it's like maybe I don't want calm because I'm scared that the art will stop if it calms down too much. So yeah, the song is really just about that, of like kind of realizing that I'm just always in pursuit of chasing some storm, so I can stand in the middle of it and sing.
Yeah. Yeah, there was so many lyrics in that song that just hit me like a ton of brick, and it sent me on a little path of some self-inquiry because I was fully aware of my storm chasing.
Mhm.
I was very proud and loud about having an organized chaos life, and I thrive in chaos and I make the best decisions in chaos. Like, talk to me with a problem and I'm like, boom, I'm on. Like
Yeah.
superwoman, my head comes out, I'm like, I'll fix it, tell me how. That kind of thing like was and still is a part, and I feel like it'll always be a part of me, but that's what lit me up. And absolutely, that was how I survived through the horrendous events that happen throughout life, so I'm grateful for it. But for me, on the other side, especially when this song hit, I've been in the Sunshine Coast for the last 2.5 years, and this has been my calm here. And
Mhm.
there really isn't much chaos, as it definitely not from where it was when I'm down in Melbourne. And I would find myself every now and again of like this fear of that I had the mentality of, if you're not growing, you're dying. So I'd be like,
Mhm.
oh, is this it? Is this the end? Is this how it happens? Is this the is this the
Yeah.
life that I'm going to live? And I had to sit in that for a little while to kind of move through that need to seek chaos and kind of create a healthy relationship with it. So I'm interested, how did your journey go on the path of finding a balance between the chaos and the calm?
I think for me is I like intentionally seek out healthy chaos, right? So like I'm a MMA coach and I train pretty much full time. So like for me, that's a really chaotic situation to throw yourself in. Like whether it's sparring or doing jujitsu, like yeah, boxing, grappling, kickboxing, like a fight is like if you can view a fight as a puzzle that needs solved, you're gonna do really well because yeah, if you make decisions well in chaos, you're gonna be really good at fighting. So it's a really good way for my brain to kind of like scratch that itch. And what I found is like, and exercise is the same way too. You
Mm.
know, every morning I put myself through intentional hell. You know, like I go really, really hard every
Yeah,
morning.
this is going to be crap, but I'm going to love it at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that has really helped me. And I think that's why like the cold plunge thing is so big with people right now. Because it's like, I don't want to do this. This is going to absolutely send my mind spinning. I'm going to have to sit in this, you know, and it kind of trains your brain to be
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm fine. This is fine.
Safe.
Um, yeah. And for me, I just like, I think the season that I'm entering now is like trust. I just trust myself, you know, and in my entire time on the planet, I've never been sure if I was going to be okay. And I feel like in the last year, I've kind of like gathered all the evidence needed to know I'm going to be okay. That it's like, no matter what happens, like I'm going to be fine. So I think that is kind of starting to mitigate a lot of that chaos seeking. Because I think before, maybe subconsciously, I like wanted to prove myself to myself.
Yeah.
You know, like, can you make it through this in one piece? Can you, you know, and now I'm just like, yeah, man, I can make it through anything in one piece. So it's like, for me, I'm kind of settling into trusting that it's like any chaos that comes is supposed to come. It's supposed to be part of my story, and I'm here for it. But if it's chill for a long time, that's fine too. I'll find something worthwhile in that season.
Oh, that lands so freaking deeply. And for some people listening, they might be like, oh, that's, trusting self. Don't we do that every day? Don't we do that when we put, one foot in front of the other? And, seemingly for some, not that grandiose of a statement, but living in a world of chaos and survival for such a long period in time, there really isn't an opportunity to trust. There is just go, and there is just do. And it almost gets to a point, especially from an internal perspective, is like, fuck this, don't worry about the safety on this side, just do whatever you can to fix the outside world and make sure it's safe. So landing in a space of trust of self, that is huge, like really, really huge. And I'm sure as a parent, this is, what a blissful state to be in, to then teach and pass down onto your children. Yeah, this safety.
100%. You know, like that's my biggest thing, you know, especially with our youngest, is I've like done, you know, I did a lot of my self-work while the older ones were growing up. So they kind of watched me grow up. But, you know, Malachi's got a pretty cool version of a dad, you know, like, you know, he's almost 6. And I feel like he's going to be the only one of the kids that ever saw his dad chill. You know, I had to learn how to chill. Like
Yeah.
growing up, there was this thing people would say, don't get caught slipping, you know, which slipping meant like relaxing and not paying attention. Cause that's when bad things happen, is when you're like
Yeah.
relaxed and just being present. I'm just like in this present moment, enjoying the present moment. It's like that's when
Don't do
bad shit
that.
happens. Not like watching everybody, paying attention, making sure there's nothing going on behind you. Like there was no chilling ever. Like maybe if you were in someone's house, even then, probably not. So it's like I did learn how to relax, you know, and yeah, I just look at my son, and that's one thing that I'm like so proud of, is he's so safe, and he knows he's safe. And I just like think about his little brain all the time. I'm like, oh my God, what's gonna become of you? Like you're never questioning your safety, or like
Yeah.
if someone's gonna lose their shit and do something wild, like you're just gonna pretty much hang, man, you know, and I love that so much for him.
What a beautiful recognition of breaking those generational patterns, and breaking that trauma that, and I guess in a sense, it's, I really hope and trust that there is that internal, maybe not pride, but just gratitude for yourself that you're not continuing the pattern that you experienced.
Yeah, it's something I take a lot of pride in.
Mm.
Because you know, my dad, he was raised the same way he raised us,
Yeah, he
you know,
doesn't know
which
any
is like
different.
yeah, which is so crazy to me. I'm like, so you know how bad that sucked and you just did it to us too? You know, but like, yeah,
Mm.
for me, I think I'm more proud of that than anything I've created, than anything in my life, is that, you know, I've raised kids that are safe.
Yeah, and I do feel as though universally there's a lot of us that have come through to make that stand in this lifetime and create safety for our children when we maybe didn't experience it ourselves. But beautifully as said is, our parents really do the best with what they've got, just like we as parents are doing the best with what we've got. And it is our choice whether we continue down one path that creates chaos or continue down another path that stops the pain of the generations, and yeah, it gives our kids such a beautiful future.
Yeah, 100%.
Speaking of your son, and I'm believing it was the youngest based on the story that you told at the concert, I'd love to dive into the notion around how you receive your music and the conversations that have the music that comes through you in those moments in time of accepting the beautiful beautiful skill and magic that you have inside of you to be able to write these songs, and how that came about.
I feel like there's a part of it that's me because I've put the effort to, learn as many words as I can. And I write every day, and I show up for it for sure. But like, it just happens, and it happens so fast. And um, recently it's happening at warp speed. Like, it's crazy. The rate at which I'm creating right now. But I would say like pretty much every song that I've ever released was probably written in under 10 minutes. Like when it happens, like it's like, yeah, it almost doesn't feel like me. Like the words, they just start coming, and each line like writes itself. Usually for me, the chorus is like a complete second thought. Like I don't really think about that. I write these verses and then I'll read through them and be like, what is this song about?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, and then I'll usually like write the chorus and be like, oh, well, all of these verses, the common theme is this. So I feel like usually the chorus is the only part that I sit with to write. Like the verses all just go super fast.
That's incredible. I would have always, and this is my little poppy brain coming out, being like, all right, what's going to be the, that part, that main chorus that's going to really kind of like hook the meaning of this song together, and then do the rest around it.
Yeah. So that's how most people write songs. I won't say what artist it is, but two very successful artists. I was invited to come write with them, and I sat in a room with these dudes, and they spent like an hour trying to figure out this hook. And the whole time I was like, yo, this is fucking whack, dude. I do not want to be here. This is so dumb.
Yeah.
And the premise of the song was like, it was so dumb. It was like meeting a girl and like, essentially trying to pick up a girl, but not come on too strong. And what I started realizing is like, I'm like, okay, so we'll each probably do a verse. You guys are clearly freaking out about what the chorus is going to be. So I wrote my verse in like, a minute and a half. And I was just kind of like sitting there waiting for my turn. But anytime I would throw a line out and I would be like, that's dope, they'd be like, no, simpler. And I'm like, oh, your goal is simpler? As soon as the unnamed artist said that to me, like, no, it needs to be simpler. I was like, I'm out of this room, bro. I don't want to be here no more. Like, I have a duty to give people better than simple. Like, I have a duty to use my spiritual and intellectual capacity to give you something deep, not simple. But that ain't me. Like, I'm not, that is not ever my goal. My goal is never simple. My goal is to make something that you'll listen to 15 times and hear 15 different things.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. That's how most people write songs, is like, what's the simple, what would make an 8-year-old sing this over and over and over again? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not making music for 8-year-olds. I'm making music for people that have gone through shit, that are trying to go through it in a good way. Like, that's who I make.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like those people that create content just to go viral. It's like,
Yeah.
is it really? I understand there's lots of people seeing it, but really?
Yeah, and I feel like that's done a number on the music industry. Like, I know some super talented musicians that just don't work. They won't go to work. They won't get on a tour. They won't do all of the things you need to do to build a business, because they're so focused on like, no, I'm going to make a video go viral. Or sometimes they will have a video go viral. And then it's like, cool, that's going to be dope for a month.
Uh-huh.
but no one knows who you are. Like the example that I've been given recently, you heard that song, "You My Little Boo Thing." Some of them. What's that dude's name?
Yeah. No idea.
You don't know it, but you know the song, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, that song's probably been used on TikTok and all of this shit, you know, 50 million times. No one knows that guy's name. So it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's no substance in that for me. I'm like,
The end
yeah,
result, it doesn't match the means. It's confusing. Yeah.
that's a
No,
weird model.
it is absolutely. But it's kind of the world that we're living in at the moment. It's
Yeah.
scary. Like I watch my kids and I'm like, wow, look, there's a sun. Look.
Yeah, yeah,
Look at
100%.
daylight. Isn't this magic? But again, it's two things are guaranteed: death and change. So
Yep.
get along for the ride, be as
Yep.
authentic as we can, keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think with kids it's just like mitigating it. You know, like with Malachi, I've set up a system where everything is earned.
Yeah.
I really want
Hmm.
because I've because me and his mother are in a position to provide an easy life for him. I still want him to know that everything is earned. That's what we did with our other kids, and I've watched them turn into adults, and they have no illusion about how the world works.
Yeah.
They know they got to go get anything they want. So like with that screen time or shit like that, I'm like, okay, bro, you gotta help me clean the truck then.
Yeah. Yep.
Play games for 30 minutes, then you gotta help me clean this truck.
Hmm.
So that's the kind of system that we're operating on, and it
The
works
barter
really well.
system. And I feel like we had to do it. We had to earn all of it. You
Yeah,
would this cup of coffee without it. And the biggest thing that I feel that not transformed, because there's so many things as a parent, but my kids are 14 and 12, and to them, it's the language. Language for me at home is massive. I want it. Do you want it or do you need it? And they're like, oh, I just want it. Okay, I won't get it. Like, brilliant. Well done. Those small little words, especially in their brains, they're so malleable. They're very, very set in their ways, very, very independent thinkers. However, there's those kinds of like foundational layers of language for me that has created, I feel like for them, it's like this different world of safety. Because again, it's earning, doing chores, helping out around the house, taking the bins out, the simple things in life that life doesn't keep going unless that shit gets done.
100%.
And then on top
Yeah,
of that, when they've got money, it's going, all right, do you need it or do you want it? What's the difference?
yeah, yeah, 100%. And like for me, I'm grateful to my son's mother. She called me out last year or last summer. She was like, dude, I'll be at the store with Malachi, and he'll be like, I want that. And she'll be like, no, we're not getting anything today. And he's like, it's cool. I'll just ask dad. Because I grew up where no was always the answer. You didn't even ask because you knew what the answer was. Like, we don't have money. You're not getting anything. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to get wrestling shoes for Christmas. Like, you ain't getting shit, son. And I got in this thing of because of
Mm.
um, the lifestyle that I have, I just like got in this habit of like, yo, daddy, can I get this? Of course. Hey, daddy, can I have this?
And how
Yep.
fulfilling is that as the parent in that moment of going,
Uh-huh.
absolutely, I never
Yeah,
got
you
this.
can get whatever you want, bro. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and she's a clinical therapist. And that's what she pointed out. Like, you're not doing that for him. It's actually damaging to him. You're doing that for you because it feels good for you to give him whatever he wants. Because there's a little kid in you that didn't get anything he wanted. And now you're like, cool, well, I'm gonna live through his joy of getting whatever he wants. And it's something that I've had to work on the last year of like, nah, man, like, and oh my God, it kills me. It's like a twisting knife in my heart. I'm like, it's fucking $25, bro. Like, yeah, I want, like, why can't he get the Lego? I don't, it's like, well, it's the lesson, dude. You can't get it for him. It's the lesson. You can get him something some other time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wow.
it's so hard for me.
I get it. I totally get it. And also too, like, I know for me as well, there's this notion of like, but what if, and still, I guess I'm through a part of the journey where that I can see the trust. The trust is so close. There's still that part of me that's like, what if it all goes away tomorrow?
Yep.
And what if tomorrow I said, that moment of time where I said no, I'm like, oh, that's that grappling feeling like,
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, it's parenting's a tricky thing, man. It's a big old mirror.
Yeah. That's what I wish I had have learned when I fell pregnant with my son when I was 21. God, I wish I knew that. I wish, because the healing and the transformation that I could have done as a child myself in those
Totally.
moments of like awareness that this is just the mirror coming back. This is a reflection, and you're all good.
Yeah. Well, it's hard too because, I started raising kids when I was, yeah, like 22.
Yeah.
Summer had 3 kids from a previous marriage, and I was a kid, but I knew I wanted to be with her, and so I helped her raise these kids. And it's a trip, and I'm close with all of them, because their dad dipped right away. Like as soon as he saw that I was there, he was out. And I'm close with all of them, and me and especially Colden, especially the middle boy, me and him have always had a really special connection. But we joke about it now. Like he's just like, dude, like, because he's 20.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, I could not even imagine, dude. Like, if I was interested in some girl and she's like, yeah, I have a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and an 8-year-old, he would be like, cool. Like, that's unfortunate. You are very cool, and I wish you the best of luck with your children. So he's like going through this thing right now because he has friends that were, that are in their 20s and mid and early 20s, and it's funny kind of watching these light bulbs go off for him of like, oh man, you were a kid. I'm like, yeah, bro. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing.
Yeah.
And a fucked up kid. I came straight from the streets and moved to Montana, met this girl, and then all of a sudden I'm raising kids. And I'm like, dude, I haven't processed my life yet. I don't even know
Talk
what
about
I'm doing.
chaos.
Yeah. So but it's a cool journey. And I think as our kids get older, like I live for that, for those ahas. Even with my own parents, I'm not close really with my folks, but my mom, like you said earlier, I really do. I believe she was doing the best with the capacity she had. She's just not really deep. She's not asking big questions. So she's just trying to survive. And she came from extreme poverty too. So she's just like, her goal was survival, not healing, not like, integrating the world for us. It was just like, I just got to make sure you guys get fed. That's
Yeah.
my job.
Yeah, wow. And as a young parent, was there a part of you, because I know there was definitely a part of me that was in that state of, well, I know how not to do it. So surely it can't be that bad with, at least knowing a little bit of what I know personally and experienced.
Yeah. Yeah. And no, I mean, that was pretty much like the only thing I really got from my parents. It was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do it how they did it. Uh, my biggest thing was like, I'm never going to hit my kids.
Yeah.
Um, and I know, especially when I was younger, Malachi will never, I think I've maybe raised my voice around Malachi like twice in his entire life. But the younger kids, before I was like, deep into self work and figuring myself out and integrating my story, I never hit them. But I think Cole has expressed to me like, bro, you're still a scary dude. Like, even if I know you're not going to hit us, like, you fucking 190 pounds, bro, and you fight for fun. So, like, yeah, when you lose your temper, it's still like, oh shit,
I know what you're capable of, right?
Yeah, like we grew up watching you fight. So, like, yeah,
Yeah,
it is a
the
thing.
fear of that is enough, especially for a kid,
Right.
because their little irrational brains go on a little journey and all of a
Yeah.
sudden anything's possible.
Yeah, and that heightened nervous system, like something that changed the way I saw the world and other people. I feel like I had a really hard time relating to people because I always was like, I didn't really have any empathy because my story was so hard that someone could tell me something they were struggling with, and my brain would be like, oh shit, bro, that wouldn't even blip on my radar.
Yeah.
Like, that's not hard.
You're like, I'm like flatlining here. This is good.
Yeah, I'm like, bro, that's not even a problem. And my friend John said to me one time, he's like, bro, as far as our nervous system is concerned, like a 7 is a 7. So like for you, a 7 might be like a shot just popped off and everybody's running.
Yeah.
So that's your 7. A 7 for someone else might be, I failed a math test.
Yeah, like
The
the
biological,
Malachi's 7. Dad raised
Exactly.
me once in my whole life, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But and it's a weird thing to think that like biologically a seven's a seven. So it's like what the way that I started having to view people and interactions and conversations was like, oh, what I hear you saying is you had like a 7 or an 8 happen. And I know what a 7 or an 8 feels like. Yeah, it's intense, huh?
Yeah.
Rather than looking at the thing. It's like, well, what's the thing behind the thing? The thing behind the thing was a biological response in your nervous system that made you feel real bad.
Yeah, find what's relative. Like, okay, we're scale of 1 to 10. Where are we sitting?
Yeah.
Then there's the representation of, well, this is what I would think about. Shit, like that's bad.
Yeah, that feels
Yeah.
bad. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's incredible. And through that journey of being a very young parent and taking on someone else's children and loving music and writing music, how did you find time for all of it? Like, was your world that organized chaos that, Storm Chaser was referencing, or when was it that you found your calm?
I don't think it ever was calm. I think I got to a place where I was like, I have to pick something. I need to pursue something because I was pretty much just dirtbagging. I was just like rock climbing and skiing, and that was it. My whole world just kind of revolved around those two things and fishing, you know? So it was just like, I can be broke and I'll just stay outside. And then I just kind of, I think, I think in your mid 20s, it's natural that you start being like, okay, but what are we doing? Like, where are we
It's
going? What do
life
we
thing all about.
Yeah, what do we want the story to be? And I was on a trip to Nepal and it just kind of hit me that it was music and that when I got home I was gonna pursue it. And I did, and I just had a really deep faith that it was gonna work out. And I was like, and even if it doesn't, then I'll go get a job at another outdoor shop. Like
Yeah, you've got
my
a better plan.
Yeah, my worst case scenario is I go back to living the life I'm living right now, and I just am like, yeah, bro, we poor, and that's just
Still
what it
good.
is. We've been broke our whole life. Like this is nothing new. We got it.
Nothing's changing. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really had nothing to lose. I don't really dabble. Like, I'm like all in. I'm either
Yeah.
all in or I'm
All
all
or
out.
nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I made that decision, I wanted to learn everything I could about the business. I wanted to learn everything I could about what a manager does, what an agent does, what a publicist does. I just became obsessed with it. And it drew some really cool people to me because I think more than anything early on, the first group of individuals that were working with me is like management and agent. I know they believed in the music, but I think more so they believed in me because they were like, bro, this kid is hungry.
Yeah.
Like I had met with a guy about being my manager, and he was like, yeah, man, I mean, you don't have a website, you don't have this. So he gave me this list of like, 15 things to do. He's like, why don't you knock these out and we'll get together in a couple months and we'll talk again. I hit him up like 4 days later and was like, yo, bro, you got another list? Is there anything else you want me to do? And he was like, yeah, come to the office right now. So I went down there. He called his partner and was like, yo, dude, this kid's wild. Like he's ready to go. And I did, and I just worked my ass off. And as I went, I learned, and I became obsessed with owning everything. And I set up a business that was really hard because the structure was everybody else gets paid first, I get paid last. But hopefully, if it plays out how I think it's going to, that's going to be really great for me later. And that's how it played out.
Yeah. And what a remarkable achievement.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's definitely not the path of least resistance.
No, I knew it was going to be hard. But it's like I always say, me and my boy Brady always say to each other, pick your heart.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
No, it's like it's hard to be poor and not pursue anything either. That's a different kind of hard, but it's still hard. And it's like, I think I've also realized like whatever you do or don't do, you'll regret it either way.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that was a huge driving force for me too. I was like, I don't want to get to the end of my life and be like, man, I loved music that whole time and I never pursued it. I was like, man, even if I do this for 5 years and I fall on my face and I have to quit, at least when I'm like sitting in the nursing home, I can be like, well, fucking, we gave it a run. I'm not going to be sitting there like, shit, what would have happened if I would have tried?
100%. Yeah. And that's a real skill. That's a real and not everyone's got it. Like that drive, that internal, as you were saying before, around that hunger and that it's self-belief. Like in some way, shape, or form, it's that I believe so deeply, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know that mine definitely came from challenges as a younger child, having to kind of parent self. I know I've got this. Like I don't care what anyone else is capable or incapable of doing. I know that if this shit's left up to me, it'll be fun. It'll be absolutely
100%.
fun.
Yeah. And it's funny. I just started like diversifying my portfolio, as it were. Because for years, people be like, hey, man, I have this investment opportunity. I'm like, nah, bro, I invest in my business because I know the boss and
Yeah.
he's a motherfucker.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah. He
know?
won't let it fail. Yeah.
Yeah. So forever, and it's still, man, my motto is all money in every time. Like I will invest, I will sell everything to put it into my business
Yeah.
because I believe in me, because I know me and I know what I'll do if it's on the line, you know. I want the ball. You know what I mean? When it's time, I want the ball.
Yeah. Yeah. More capable hands to have it, hey?
Yeah. Yeah. I trust
So,
me.
yeah. Yeah. And so what's next? What's the plan for you? What's coming up? Are you coming back to Australia?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be there for like a month next year.
Yay, amazing.
Yeah, so I think like I said, I think Dan and I thought the shows would be all right. They weren't, they were great.
They were epic. Yeah.
Um so on our way, actually on the drive uh up to the sunny coast, he's
Mm.
like, "Bro, I think we should do like 9 shows next year." I was like, "Yeah, bro, I'm in. I love it there." I was like I was blown away at how much I enjoy myself.
Mm.
Like the culture, everybody's sweet. I left my backpack at the airport and nobody stole it. Like that shit's wild to me, bro. If I was in Chicago, that backpack would have been gone as soon as I turned around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Left my phone in a cab and the cab driver mailed it to us. Like just crazy. But
Welcome
yeah,
to
it's so
an honest city. Yeah.
yeah. The coffee was great, the people were nice, the weather was fantastic. So I'm gonna be there. Um, I think I come in the middle of October and then I'll be there until early November. So I'll be there for like 3.5 weeks. I think we're doing three, six, nine, I think like 9 shows. So
On the morning that they were coming to pick you up, I bumped into Dan and Beck at a coffee shop, like halfway between here and Brisbane. And you don't ever bump into anyone at a coffee shop at 6 a.m. in the morning. And I turn around, I'm like, oh God, hi guys. And they were coming down to pick you up. And I was like, okay, this is amazing. This little bump in, and then obviously hearing the words at the concert, and then having you say yes to come on the podcast. I'm like, this is amazing. I feel as though it's definitely, this is a conversation I've been dying to have and super excited to have. So I'm very excited to watch what you do next.
yeah, I'm working on a bunch of new music right now too, like every single day.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that. Like I said, I'm creating at a crazy pace right now.
And I
Yeah,
know
I
you've
hope
gotten
everybody.
back from tour as well, right?
Yeah, so I did a run in California and now I'm home and then I'll be touring in the States April and May. Um and then I'm taking another big chunk of time off. And then we'll do a tour in August and then I'll take a couple months off before I come to Australia.
Yeah,
But I'm
well,
trying to keep my schedule light because I know that Australia trip's going to be a doozy because I have like 4 days off between shows there. So I'm gonna like try to pop up to Bali. I'm like gonna go to New Zealand for a few days. Like I'm trying to
yeah,
make that.
make the most of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We are quite lucky having a few things nice and close, so it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So question, I mean, I'm intrigued by this. Do you feel as though when you do get home and kind of feet on the ground and land, is that when the music starts to come through?
Yeah. I feel like I get chunks of it while I'm traveling.
Mm.
It's interesting when I'm traveling a lot, I feel really called to write poetry. I don't even know what I'd call it, like musings, like kind of artistic 2-page descriptions of where I'm at physically, geographically, and spiritually. And when I get home, yeah, I feel like that's when it starts to process. And that's when I'm like, when I can sit down in this desk in this room, this is like when it starts coming really fast. It's like my
Mm,
body knows it's home, and it's like, okay, now let's process.
yeah. There was one of the stories that you told at the concert about how you came home from tour and that your wife handed you your son and you were like, oh, it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, all right now. That was so awkward. It was just like, hey.
I love you and I miss you, but take the baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have a say when it comes. Now I think I've trained my brain. Like it knows what chunk of the morning we get to work.
Mm,
But it used to just lightning strike.
yeah. And I feel like that's, maybe it's not a habit because we can't, as we were talking about before, you can't control when those kinds of things come through. But as that recognition becomes more apparent in those moments, and I guess that room for you is probably safety and going, hey,
Yes.
right, cool, the outside world doesn't exist right now, let's do this.
Yep.
And we all find that in different areas and different places, and yeah, that's magic.
Yeah.
Really magic. Oh, well, I've absolutely loved our time together. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. There's so many questions that I had to ask, but I'm very mindful and respectful of time. So thank you for joining us and sharing your insights and speaking so beautifully into the space of satsang and the songs and the musings and the journey. And yeah, was there anything that you wanted to leave the listeners with?
Oh, that always sounds bad when I say this, but I just mean it. Like you're gonna die. So like what till then? I think the biggest lie that we tell ourselves is we have time because you don't know if you have time. None of us know if we have time. So it's like whatever that thing is that you feel like you should be doing that you're not because you're seeking safety. Safety is not real either. Um, so yeah, just live, pursue that thing that sets your heart on fire. Don't go the safe route. The safe route will always lead you to the same place of regret.
Oh, I love that so much. And you're right, like safety is just a coping mechanism.
Yeah, and it's not real. It's not real. It's like I was just telling my friend the other day. I had a friend of mine whose dad worked at this job for 22 years, and his thought process was, "Well, I have kids. It would give me this insurance, and then I get this pension." He was fired 2 weeks before he got his pension. Yeah, so it's like he picked the safe route, ended up not being safe.
Yeah. And the goal also in there was relying on someone else.
Exactly. Amen.
That company, that business is going to be the one to give me what I need to be happy. And even that in itself, putting happiness outside of ourselves. And, again, going back to kids, it's such an easy reference. Like, I'll be happy when I have this, or I'll be happy when I get this. And, as an adult, it's promotions or that car or that whatever it might be. It's so much seeking of external validation and satisfaction that do you actually feel any different when you get it?
Never. I bought a lot of dumb shit, and I've never felt better after I got any of it.
Oh dear, I know, and I guess that's part of the journey, though, right? It's the
Yep. I said you don't know until you know.
yeah, absolutely, and you don't know what you don't know, so give it a crack, buy the dumb shit, and then realize on the other side. Thank us later.
Yeah. No.
Oh, amazing. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much again. I'm definitely going to hit you up when you're in Australia, and I'll be coming to one or two of your concerts, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I will see you next fall,
Yes.
or I guess your guys' spring.
Yes, it'll be spring. It'll be beautiful. It won't be as crazily hot anymore.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Pleasure. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I would love to hear your feedback around what resonated and what key lessons and learnings that you took out of today's episode. You can find me on Instagram and on LinkedIn under the She Can Humanize Business podcast or Kiani Mills. I really hope that you were able to see, feel, and experience a new way of humanizing business.